All right. All right. 1 second. Let me prepare myself for the opening. I know. Wait. What? Yes.
So how about instead of making it into a solid chocolate bar, how about if I have extra chocolate, I can just use the remaining one to make solid chocolate cups.
Oh, okay, baby. It sounds great. Yes. I know. Okay. Hello, everyone. It's Bad Anime Sunday episode 5, isn't this? And this is Fighting Game February, the 2nd episode, where today we watched a recent anime, actually, BlazBlue Alter Memory, which is, of course, an adaptation, or so it would like to call itself, of the BlazBlue video games.
Well, let's be fair. It is an adaptation because it does adapt the story. The problem is that there really isn't much story to begin with.
All right, so BlazBlue, the video games, I will just go on and say, I know that it has a convoluted story on the level of Kingdom Hearts or possibly worse. It sounds like even worse, and
Oh, you have no idea.
Yes, I have no idea because I only played Ragnar's story because with BlazBlue, I just wanted to fight online people. I didn't really want to play the story. You know, I thought it was because even though it took a visual novel style in the video game, I still felt like Ragnar's story was way too rushed to really get into, you know, because it was still basically it was basically still being a fighting game, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for every character, and it's still the story itself. It's still too rushed. But even though that was rushed, the BlazBlue anime is super rushed in comparison, where it does the entire story of Calamity Trigger in the first 2 episodes. Believe it. It's hilarious. And this is where me and Samvin will have a somewhat disagreeing opinion on it. I actually somewhat guiltily enjoyed this show.
Really?
I don't know how it happened,
How?
but I'll explain it. I mean, don't get me wrong. This show is very bad. Very, very bad. But for some reason, I kind of liked what I watched. You know, I don't know why. It is definitely a guilty pleasure. The story, the biggest problem with this anime is, of course, the story makes absolutely no sense. It feels like, the anime feels like it's the 2nd season, and we weren't given the first 12 episodes, is what it really feels like. But I'm going to let Samvin talk about everything that is completely shit about this anime, and how I'm going to say that I still enjoyed it anyway, because now I realize I probably have some bad taste in me still left. Yes.
Well, where to begin is the real question. Okay, I think I know where to begin. Here's the problem. They're adapting the BlazBlue story.
Yes,
that's problem. Now
that is the problem. Yes.
If you haven't played a BlazBlue game, let me briefly summarize the story for you. One day, human beings discovered this extra-dimensional realm of great power called the Boundary. And deep within the Boundary is something called the Master Unit Amaterasu, which is basically God. They don't call it God, but that's what it is. Humans made contact with Amaterasu, and the machine that they use to gain contact with it is called a prime field device. It somehow gains the ability to observe things, as in quantum physics, you observe an event and that helps to make it real, which is not really how quantum physics works, because I actually have friends who study quantum physics who are... But anyway, the point is, so we're going by pseudoscientific definitions of quantum physics here. This thing, it observes events, it makes them real. Humanity wants that power for itself. It created this other machine god called Takamagahara. The Takamagahara system basically wants to create a new future for humanity. Somehow, there was... somehow a guy called Yuki Terumi acquired the power of the Azure, which is like the ultimate power of everything ever. And he tried to create something called Kusanagi, the Sword of the Godslayer, which is not a sword but a robot, but you got to roll with me on this one. He attempted
Sword of the Godslayer, the robot.
He attempted to use Kusanagi in order to wipe out Amaterasu, but Kusanagi failed, and it mutated into something called the Black Beast, which went back in time, terrorized the world, and covered the world with Seether, which is like the energy of the boundary / the energy of the Black Beast that the Kusanagi turned into. And now we're in the future of the timeline that was ruined, and
are you confused yet, guys?
And then from in the aftermath of that, the Black Beast was defeated by 6 heroes who all used ancient. You know what? Fuck it. You know what? You want to know what the story is? There's a guy called Ragnar the Blood Edge blowing up these big hierarchical cities because Yuki Terumi kidnapped his sister and cloned him to turn them into other Kusanagi units. Why? How? I don't know. I don't care. It hurts to analyze this story. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I always feel like, Hazuma, he's basically the Joker of the show. He just does it because he loves trolling for some reason. I don't know if he actually has a motivation behind anything.
He does, and boy, are you going to feel dumber for knowing this.
Okay.
Based on the extremely loose understanding of quantum physics the show ascribes to, Hazuma is a ghost. And as a ghost, Hazuma can't actually exist unless he has someone observing his existence at all times. So he needs people to constantly be thinking about him in order for him to keep existing. And the easiest way to do this is just to make people hate him, because they will constantly be thinking about him and what he does and how much of a douchebag he is. So Hazuma literally needs to make people hate him in order to stay alive, which does make sense, but it does not excuse the horrible train wreck of a story that this show is.
So is Hazuma still your favorite character then?
He used to be. I think he still is, kind of, in the sense that I just don't like anyone else. He's the character. He's gone from the character. I used to quite like Hazuma. I used to be quite a fan of BlazBlue, but the story has just become so convoluted that I can't even explain it, and now I hate it. Hazuma is a character that I dislike him the least. Like,
okay. He doesn't like him, but he doesn't hate him as much as the other characters.
Yeah.
Okay. Before you go on, this is a real big issue with the story and the characters. Obviously, it's a fighting game story. The story is an excuse. Why it even has a story, especially a story this convoluted in the first place, is pretty crazy. Especially
it's a fighting game. Why does a fighting game need a visual novel story?
And especially when it wasn't even willing to develop its story. It's willing to have a super complicated, convoluted story, but it's not willing to develop that much time to story sections, It just has lots of events happen. And there's lots of freaking characters. But keeping track of these events and whatever, it's not willing to flesh out these events very much. And this is why I probably enjoyed the anime more than the video game story, probably because the anime just didn't give a shit about explaining anything to you. It just was like, well, one thing to another. The main problem with this story is, one, it's rushed, and the other is it has too many freaking characters. Way too many characters.
Yeah, way too many characters. And the thing that I need to be honest here. This was another Diabolic Lovers for me. I kept dipping in and out of attention because literally anything was more interesting than this anime. And the problem is, it never explains anything for it. Like, Paul says he didn't mind this. I did. If I want to follow a story, I want to know what's going on. I want to know why I should care about these characters and what they're doing. That did not happen here. The story never adequately explains what's going on. It doesn't really tell me what a boundary prime interdimensional field is. It doesn't really tell me what the power of the Azure entails. Everything I've told you based on guesswork alone, and I'm still not sure I've got it right. So if a story can be out for 5 years, and this was when the first game came out, by the way, actually I think it might have been closer to 7, so yeah. if a story, however long it's been, if a story's been out for years and years and years, and I'm still no closer to piecing it all together and understanding just what the hell is going on, doesn't that say there's a problem?
Yes, there is no doubt. The story is junk. Okay, the story is junk. It's impossible to follow, and literally all you can really do, which is what I did, I kind of just stopped. I don't give a shit about the story. And for Sam Venn, this is a big problem. He's a story, story is important to him, and it should be. It should be important to me, but for some reason, I was able to forgive it simply because I just, I'm not saying this anime is good. I'm not. It is not good. It is a piece of shit. But I was able to enjoy it, and oh my god, Pi, get off the recorder!
You can't see it, ladies and gents, but Paul's now being assaulted by a cat.
Okay, Pi's off the recorded. Okay, we're good. All right. What was that? What the hell was I saying, Sam Van?
That the story is junk, and that...
Okay, the story is junk. But I was able to enjoy basically everything else to some degree. I know the characters are not that good. They're not good. They're not well written. We don't know anything about them. Like I said, this feels like season 2. It feels like, hey, you guys already know these characters, right? So it's kind of like you gotta have played BlazBlue beforehand to know anything about these characters, to care about them if you even cared about them in the first place, because the game story really doesn't do much, But whatever. You know what? I was able to enjoy other things, probably because one thing, the pacing was not... I don't know if you disagree with it. The pacing was not super slow like most anime. Events happened pretty fast. I didn't understand the events, but I was able to basically... It was able to keep my attention, this is why, it's funny, this might be another Diabolic Lovers for you, but I actually enjoyed watching this show more than I enjoyed watching Sword Art Online, It's a pretentious fuck of a mess of a story, but for some reason, it's probably because it's colorful, and even though the music is directly ripped from the game, the music is better. It's much better than the majority of anime out there. It is,
Yeah.
It's not, obviously they probably should have had more original tracks, but hey,
Honestly, the music is probably the only thing I really liked about this show. I mean, sometimes the animation showed a degree of care, but a lot of the time it didn't.
And that's the other thing. Unlike the Tekken movie, there was actually fights in this, that didn't last 2 seconds. So, I could actually recommend it to people. Oh, you want to see the characters animate fights? They have the animation isn't great, like you said, but it's one of those series I just kind of enjoyed guiltily because I just kind of turned my brain off, kind of enjoyed the action that I was given. I don't know why. It's probably because we've watched 4 pieces of shit in a row, so I've become more forgiving because this was less of a piece of shit than the 4 pieces of shits we watched before for some reason. I don't know why that is, but that's just how it goes. But the worst part is basically all the characters already act like they know each other, and I thought it was somewhat interesting because they basically implied they were in a time loop from episode 1.
Yeah, that's the story of episode 1. It is a time loop story.
So I was like, oh, so it's acting like the audience shouldn't know. I was wondering if they were going to do like, oh, the audience shouldn't know these characters, but these characters know each other, but that is because they're time looping. And I was wondering if it would show us previous time loops. It did not. But that was funny. That was amusing to a degree that it really doesn't care about showing you the beginning, the actual, I guess because there's really not much of a story in the first place, more than what was shown, of course, but they're really, it's funny how you can make a story which is so convoluted, but there's still not much real meat to the story in the first place.
Yeah, I think actually my beef with this story is that I found it boring because, I did mind that the story didn't explain itself. I didn't like how it felt like it was skipping all over the place. It was like,
there's no doubt that it skips. Like I said, it is just a series of events strung together. And with no real interconnection, no real build-up, no real anything. By all means, I should hate this show. I should. And I probably don't because we've watched some stuff that I consider so much worse. It's probably all there is to it.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it, but honestly, it bored me. I did think, however, that there were a few things I liked. They weren't enough to save it. Like, for example, we did actually have like an expansion of Ragnar's character, because in the games, Ragnar is a really just... I don't understand why he's the hero. He's just mean, he's just condescending, he's a bit of a douche to, well, everyone. But here, he's still gruff, but he's more of a nice guy. And I liked that. Like, I like also... Episode 8 is probably the only episode I genuinely liked. And that's mostly because they involved Lambda, who's a very sympathetic character from Continuum Shift, which was the second game. And Lambda's story, crossed with Ragnar's, given their relationship, made for... It was a weird episode. It was very out of character for Ragnar especially, but I didn't mind that so much. In fact, I think they should have taken more liberties with the characters because they're not very well fleshed out in BlazBlue. Yes. Things happen to them. That's not the same as the characters make things happen. Plot events happen to these characters because the script needs them to happen to them. But personally, I think that they should have taken more liberties with the characters. Like, allow them to grow and evolve beyond what the game does. I mean, obviously you have to follow the story of the game, but you can develop these characters some more.
I don't think... Well, I hate to interrupt you, but
no, it's okay.
I don't think they necessarily even needed to follow the story verbatim. You know, the story's a mess. To me, and I think the problem was they tried to follow the story to some degree, and I think they should have done their own little thing with it. They should have taken ideas from the game, like, say, Hazama. That idea is actually kind of cool, you know? And I kind of like that idea. You know, it's not developed or expanded well. It's just for trolling issues, you know. It's really just an excuse for trolling is the problem with it. To me, the whole concept of Jin becoming possessed with a sword and basically tearing Ragnar's arm off, and then, you know, Noel, who obviously is like a clone of his sister or something, who seems to have developed feelings for Ragnar as well.
Which is creepy, because she's a clone of his sister.
Well, it's technically not incest, huh? It's just somewhat incest-ish. But, the fact that, hey, they should have said, oh, but she works for Jin, who is also her brother, and that little strife all right there, those three players and that little strife right there is enough for an interesting story. Plus we can add Hazama into it. Yeah. You know? So we could have those four central characters, and we could have a good story if they focused 12 episodes on those four. And maybe had a few side characters do a little something or other. You don't need Carl, you don't need Lychee, you don't need Taukaka, you don't need any of those characters because they're unnecessary.
They don't do anything.
I mean, and of course, you want... The Hazama concept is really a good concept for a villain because you could say, you know, that this is the reason he tempted Jin. That's what happened, right? He tempted Jin. Is that what happened? I'm never sure.
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, we'll just say in our adaptation, if we made one, we would say Hazama was the one to tempt Jin because he needs people to hate him because he needs to continue to exist. Why? Because he's afraid of not existing. You know, it would be like Ultimisia and FF8 done right or something.
Yeah.
You know, just someone who's afraid of not existing. Why? Of course, the hard part would be coming, why is he a ghost and why is he like this at all? That would be the hard part, of course.
Well, no, just say, like, he was a bad guy who was, like, a really, really terrible person and then he died and, I don't know, just, like, say he was barred from the afterlife or something. It's not that hard.
Well, I guess we could do that. And then the story would have to be mostly about Hazama, wouldn't it? That'd be cool! It'd just be about Hazama. You know, it'd be like, It'd be kind of like Hazuma would play the role of Drosselmeyer from Princess Tutu. I know you haven't watched that, but it actually is a good anime. I know a good anime. I know. How could it be?
How could you mention a good anime to me?
And he could just try to troll things behind the scenes because he needs to do that to exist, and just build up his increasing insanity or whatever, because he gets lost in it or whatever.
Yeah.
And that would have been fine. We have 4 key players. They all have an interesting way to develop it, and it would be sympathetic because we have 3 people who are just stuck in this little tragedy. But instead, we get this mess of a story where shit just happens and happens and happens, and it's like, well, yeah, that's happening now. Now, not to mention, I will say I still somewhat enjoyed it. Would I ever rewatch it? And would I ever recommend it to anyone? No, absolutely not. I would not, ever. It's not good. It's just something I somehow didn't hate. I baffled myself for not hating this, and it's probably just because I don't know. I think Ragnar being somewhat generally a nice guy and not super duper annoying was helpful.
Yeah, Ragnar was a much better. He was a more tolerable character by far.
I'm used to anime main leads being almost the worst character every single time, and Ragnar might also still. Well, I wouldn't say he's the worst character. That's probably still Noelle, but because Noelle is the shrieking Violet, the clumsy ditzy girl who's useless.
Yep.
And that's kind of a shame because she's kind of a badass in the games, when you're actually fighting with her. But for some reason, they just make her seem utterly useless in the anime, other than having this super duper awesome awakening power, whatever.
Yeah, definitely. I would honestly say I think I agree with you. I think focusing just on kind of the Ragnar, Jin, Noelle, Terumi relationship. Terumi and Hazuma are the same person, by the way, because that's not confusing or anything.
Yes, yes, I know that. I just call him Hazuma because that's his game name.
I was just saying it for the audience, but yeah, no, I agree. It should have focused more on them. It should have been more focused. I thought that the recharacterization of some characters was good. It just needed to go further than that, and that would have been more interesting, I think. But and I don't know. I still think it's a pile of crap.
It is a pile of crap.
Yeah.
Don't worry about. I don't disagree with you. It is. It's just sometimes you enjoy shit. It's somehow you do, and there's no way to really explain how you enjoy it. Kind of like how some people we enjoy The Room for being a pile of shit.
It's a guilty pleasure.
It is there's no doubt. I'm just gonna say this is a guilty pleasure. Not something I would recommend, and it's probably something I'd be embarrassed saying I liked, but I don't really get embarrassed, do I? So yes.
So this is kind of for you what the Tekken movie was for me.
Yes, because I found the Tekken movie boring, and you liked it, and I was like, well, okay.
Well, I didn't like it. I just enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it, yeah. And it's really the same difference here. That somehow I was able to enjoy it. I can't really explain how. It just sort of happened, For Sword Art Online, I cringed at every episode. For Attack on Titan, I cringed at every episode almost. I was so bored with both those shows. And yet for this, I somewhat mildly enjoyed it. What I wish is what BlazBlue has, I think it has decent pacing. Like basically what I mean by decent pacing is no one scene goes on too long or too short.
Yeah,
they just don't have any.
A good point.
They don't have any flow to them. Is the problem?
Yeah.
It's like Ragnar's randomly in the city in the first episode, right? He's walking around in the city, takes a fucking nap, and then Noelle finds him, right? And then he freaks out, and then he goes and finds the secret base where no one's there, and Nu's hiding, and Jin's there. It's like, how do you go from there to there? How do you find that place so quickly?
Yeah.
It seemed like kind of a special place, It just seemed like a kind of random for him to randomly be walking into that place the next second. Like, it seemed like an important place, but nothing was really expanded on it or anything. And
yeah, I agree. I didn't feel like we had a very good sense of location. Like, I was always confused, like, how far we were, like, where we were, how far away we were from what we were doing and where we were going. I mean, say what you want about the Tekken movie, at least we always knew where we were going. The big
definitely.
tower.
We definitely knew where we were in the Tekken movie. We definitely knew. It was kind of hard not to know in the Tekken movie. if the Tekken movie just didn't know where its story was going, that was all. But I think what a lot of anime could learn is that sense of pacing, of not letting a scene go on too long unless it's a very important scene to get right. Like, it's okay for the Ragna and Noon confrontation to go on for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you know? Because it's an
important fight.
It's an important fight, or it would be if it wasn't done in the second episode. You know, if there was 8 episodes prior, or at least 5 episodes prior to this building, you know, that's what BlazBlue needed. Take out the characters, take out like half the cast, give it 5 episodes before the first episode, and then maybe we'd have had we'd have to change the story to the way I described it as well. And but keep the pacing. Keep the pacing. I like the pacing. I like that no scene stretches on too long, because that's a lot of anime's problems. That's the problem with Sword Art Online. And
I can actually sorry, Paul.
That's the problem with Sword Art Online. That's the problem with Attack on Titan, is the scenes just drag and drag and drag. You know, you got to realize that anime is not a book. Even a book can drag scenes out, of course. But a book, you can read it as fast as you can read, right? But an anime scene, you have to watch and wait for the scene to be over, and at the same pace everyone else is. So, you know, I'm just saying. I mean, obviously you could just fast forward if you get really bored, but then who cares anymore? Why would you even watch the show you have to fast forward through?
I will say, I think my problem with the story came... Like, there was a moment literally halfway through the show, and that was the moment where I gave up on it, because I was trying to give it a chance before then. But there's a moment where we go back to Takamagahara because Jin's just been killed by Tsubaki. Takamagahara says, okay, that didn't work. Let's rewind time so that never happens. And then I just outright... Like, I shouted at my computer, "Are you kidding me?" And I just...
Does that not happen in the video game?
Well, there is a time loop in the games, but the time loop doesn't happen after the continuum shift. So it's like these guys are set, and like, in the game, I thought that the game worked on the logic of Calamity Trigger is a time loop, but when the time loop is broken and history flows again, that's the continuum shift and anything can happen. And like, the one interesting idea of continuum shift is that, like, for the first time no one knows what's happening because history's broken and anything can happen for the first time, which is why everyone is trying to manipulate the continuum shift to their advantage. But the Takamagahara can just say, oh, we didn't like how the continuum shift went, let's just like rewind time. And I was just like,
yeah,
no. I like... Suspension of disbelief allows me to do a lot of things, Paul. I can say this man has a magic arm that can transform into an ancient monster that can shoot out beams of darkness. I can say this man is psychotic and he has a magic sword that controls ice. I can say that this girl has the sword of the Godslayer embedded in her or whatever. But suspension of disbelief does not allow me to say this is magic and they can do whatever they want at any time. Because if that's the case, then there's no drama. It's impossible to care about characters who can just do anything at any one time because there's no sense of dread.
You know, and I bet you were wondering, oh my god, at that point, are they actually going to keep Jin dead and change the story of the video games? I bet you got your hopes up for a second, didn't you?
I wouldn't, well... I had a feeling he wasn't going to die, but that was because I thought, like, you know, it would turn out that his injury just wasn't fatal or something because he has anime plot armor. Yeah. And I know that's roughly the same thing, but it's like, if you can rewind time, why do you need to have any agents at all if you have that kind of power? If you can break the laws of physics by controlling time, then why do you need observers? Why do you need the Azure Grimoire? Because it seems like you're pretty much God already, so...
Yeah, it's really stupid. The plot is stupid. There's no denying it. The plot is stupid. And it's stupid because it's rushed. And but you're right. Magic, Deus Ex Machina, of course, is the worst thing you could probably write in a story. Just about. Except to make a completely boring story. Because you could somehow make an entertaining story and have Deus Ex Machina in it, and it still, sucks it had Deus Ex Machina, but at least it was entertaining and not a boring story. I don't really have any suggestions of a story like that. I'm sure there is one, but yes. It's stupid. It's stupid that you can just anime fans should know that the key animes are supremely guilty of this, of the magic that can do anything, and and they forgive it because they're like, oh, it gave me emotions and whatever. But it's bad writing, guys.
It's really bad writing.
It means that the writer doesn't care about the drama. What it really means, I've said this before in other videos, but what it really means is, one, the author has no balls. That's what it really means. He has no balls. He's not willing to, because he's like, oh, I went too far. I should undo this. Therefore I will.
Yeah.
and that happened.
And that's sad.
That's sad when an author just... I don't know what happens when maybe a writer cares about his characters too much. I can't imagine that happened in BlazBlue, of course. But I guess when a writer cares about his characters too much, that he's not willing to do what he did to them. And it's like, well, then why did you even do what you did to them that was bad in the first place, man? Either you got to go through with it, or don't have the drama in the first place. That's my whole...
If you're going to have a story with consequence... Tell a story with consequence. That's really all I have to say about it.
It's really it. I mean, it's like in Fate Zero. Not to spoil Fate Zero. Let's just say random character. Let's just say that if they could just bring the servants back to life at the end,
that wouldn't, and then the whole thing wouldn't carry any kind of weight.
Basically, I've watched a show that had the Fate Zero kind of plot. It did exactly that, by the way.
No.
It's called My Hime, the worst ending I've ever seen in anime history.
Wow.
Never, ever, ever watched that show. It's a piece of shit, but good music. Same music composer as Fate Zero.
Fair enough.
But I hate it when authors do that. And obviously, it's hard to really talk much more about BlazBlue other than, what can we say? What did you feel like a Jin was downplayed more than you thought he would be?
Yeah, but I liked that. I liked that Jin was underused because I don't mind Jin, but I don't quite get him. So I was okay with them downplaying him. I really wanted... sorry. Talking about BlazBlue was boring. Seriously. I didn't mind that Jin was downplayed. The one thing that I did think could have done with some more development, though, was really Tsubaki and Makoto. Now, they had a lot of screen time, but that's not the same as development. I mean, just they were on screen a lot, but I don't think that their relationship was really... It wasn't really brought forth. It wasn't really expanded upon. It was just like, they're together, they say, we are friends, we are friends, we are friends. But that's not the same as development.
Nope. Not development at all.
It would have been more meaningful, I think, if we'd as I say, go off the rails a bit. Maybe have Tsubaki realize, oh my god, I've been played for a fool sooner than she does in the game. But, hey, maybe that's just me.
Then we would have to make her a good character, Sam Finn. Are you sure you really want to do that? Make her realize she's being played for a fool, and then trick the antagonist into think that she's still being played for the full, you know? Make her a good character?
Yeah, of course
maybe.
Of course I want a good character.
Well, damn it, you're not going to get it from BlazBlue.
No, I'm not.
The most you're going to get is good fighting game mechanics and possibly good music. It depends.
Actually, about the fighting, I know you praised it, but I personally thought, I know that the fights are happening. And after Tekken, they were a step up, but I didn't think that they were as good. I'm still waiting for when we find a fighting game anime that actually has good fighting in it.
Okay, I'm not gonna say the fighting was good, but I'm just saying it was definitely a step up. You know, at least
was there.
It was there. You know, at least I could say, you know, in BlazBlue, an adaptation of a fighting game, there will be fighting in it. That isn't 2 seconds per fight. I think the only fighting game adaptation where I actually somewhat enjoyed the fights to some degree was the best fighting game adaptation is actually the Virtua Fighter anime. The video game with the least amount of personality to it.
Really?
It's shocking. It's not a good anime, but it is the best adaptation of a fighting game I've seen. Because at least it's not only self-aware, but at least it tries to develop its characters to a degree, and it actually kind of works, and the main character is fairly likable, and the characters are fairly likable, and it's not a try-hard series at all, but at least spends its time developing the characters and developing their friendships, and that's more than I could say for any fighting game adaptation I've ever watched.
All right, then. Well, I've said everything I think I want to say. What about you?
Nothing really. Seriously though, if you're gonna do an adaptation, you probably should just focus on one part of the story and only that. Not like this Tekken movie, which include 4 subplots. You know, not like this, which include 1 million subplots. Just one part is probably all you need. If you're a fighting game writer, you're probably not a very good writer in the first place, okay? Don't try too hard to impress anybody. Just try to do the normal thing. And especially don't include sci-fi into your fighting game. Oh my god, you're gonna kill yourself.
Yeah.
But I think we've said all we need to say today on BlazBlue. We can't recommend it, not even for it's so bad it's good. I somewhat guiltily enjoyed it, but I'm going to guarantee most people would watch it and be bored like Samvin, or just so confused they'll hate it. So, with that being said, we are going to watch Art of Fighting next week, I think. Is that what we're going to watch?
I think that is what we're going to watch.
Okay, an anime adaptation of a fighting game that is so old that... I'm sure no one has even played it that will watch the podcast. And no one will ever play it again unless they're really bored.
All right, then. I guess this is Bad Anime Sunday signing off, then.
All right, we'll see you guys later.
See you guys next week. Bye-bye.